East Hampton Town Board, you are live.
Welcome everyone to the January 17th meeting of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, if you could please take the roll call. Present.
Present.
Here. Present. I invite you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So first, I'd like to just let everyone know what we can expect for today's meeting. We're going to start with public comment, and that'll be for any topic other than the airport. What we'd like to do is, after public comment, have Jeannie Carrozza present bids for the town, and then Dan Ruzzo from Whiteman, Osterman and Hannah, and Peter Farrow from AKRF will do a presentation on the East Hampton Town Airport DGEIS public scoping session, and then we'll take comment on the airport. And then lastly, Council Member David Lease will have a discussion, lead a discussion on community Wi-Fi at our beaches. So let's start with public comment. Carol, do we have anyone signed up? Okay, it's airport. Jason, do we have anybody on the line for public comment?
We currently do not have anyone online for public comment. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to dial. I'm going to dial in and respond via the line just to double check everything.
Thank you.
East Hampton Town Board, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, the line is active. We currently don't have any callers on the line. The number is on top of the screen, along with the fact that the airport comments will be handled after the presentation.
You're good, Jason. Thank you. Okay, so Jeannie, you want to talk to us about bids?
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Just one bid to accept this morning, which is the Head of the Harbor electrical upgrades. New York Trenchless is the apparent low bidder in the amount of $149,235. Next is the rejection of Second House exterior restoration phase 3, and hoping to get a new bid clarifying items for that soon. And then several notices, the YMCA roof replacement, another bid for the YMCA HVAC replacement. Then we're having South Emory pickleball courts, and then transfer station outdoor signs. And lastly, proposal for household hazardous waste collection days or the stop days. And that's it for today.
Beautiful. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Jeannie?
No.
No. Thanks, Jeannie.
Thanks, Jeannie.
All right, Jason, you can let Dan and Peter in, please.
Doing so right now.
All right, Jason, you can let Dan and Peter in, please.
Dan, if you do me the favor of muting your YouTube device in the background, or whatever you're using to view.
Peter in, please.
Okay. There we go.
Jason, will we be able to see them on screen?
Absolutely. I am going to unpin myself from the main video point right now.
Thank you. Welcome, Dan and Peter. We'd like you now to take us through the presentation you have for the East Hampton Town Airport operational changes and the DGEIS scoping session.
Okay, thank you very much, Kathy. So today's scoping session, is going to be one of the two key opportunities for formal public comment into the secret process for considering long-term operational changes at the East Hampton Town Airport. The importance of this session is that it provides the opportunity for the public to comment on essentially the table of contents for the EIS, the methodology that we're employing to study the effects of those changes, and enable the town board to come out with a final scope that will govern and direct the various consultants' work on producing a draft generic environmental impact statement going forward. Without further ado, the principal purpose today is to collect public comments, and the public comment period is going to continue through January 27th for both email and written comments to come in. But with that, let me turn it over to Peter to walk us through where we are in the process and today's focus.
Thanks, Dan, and thank you, board members. Peter Farrow from the planning and environmental consulting firm AKRF. So first, just again, a really quick presentation. Want to remind folks what we're talking about. The town is proposing to implement long-term operational policies through a prior permission required framework to regulate flight operations when it's legally permissible to do so. And specifically, the town is proposing the following permissions on aircraft operations: time-based permissions, such as a curfew; aircraft-based permissions, referring to the type of aircraft; noise-based permission, which have to do with the most noisy aircraft operations; and operator-based permissions, as in commercial operators; and environmental-based permissions, such as lead-based fuel sales. It's also noted that permanent closure of the town airport, when legally permissible, will also be studied as an alternative, and we'll get into kind of the alternatives in a minute or so. As implementing this program is a discretionary action defined under SECR, the town must consider the environmental effects of that action prior to making a decision. So SECR, the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, requires that the town takes a hard look at the potential environmental impacts of its discretionary action prior to committing itself to that action. And as Dan had mentioned, SECR has relatively prescribed steps to ensure that the environmental review is thorough, including an examination of alternatives, and that public participation, such as that from today, is included throughout. So the initial SECR steps, which were already undertaken by this board, were to classify the action. It's what's called an unlisted action pursuant to SECR. To complete the environmental assessment form, again, parts 1, 2, and 3, and to determine whether or not there was the potential for one or more significant adverse environmental impacts. And the town board found that there was a potential and identified the following potential significant adverse impacts: increased noise at airports that might receive diverted flights, including Montauk, Southampton, Heliport, and Gabreski; changes in flight operations, so the number, the type, the time, the frequency; changes in vehicular traffic patterns as a result of those flight changes, as well as changes in community character. Once that positive declaration was established by the town board, an environmental impact statement is then required by SECR. I'm sorry, the town board also identified air quality, greenhouse gas, and noise-sensitive wildlife as potential impacts. Apologies. The EIS that's going to be prepared is what's called a generic environmental impact statement, which allows the town to evaluate a program, a policy change, as opposed to a more typical land development, which we see a lot of in SECR. And it allows the town to evaluate a range of alternatives. So here's how the process generally goes. Once you're in an EIS, the town board released a draft of the GEIS scoping document, which defined the areas of study or tables of content. That was released back in December. Today, we're having a public scoping session on that draft GEIS scope. Comments will be accepted today at this scoping session, as well as in written form, either email or mail, through the 27th. Based on those comments, the town board will revise and finalize and then publish a draft, the scope for the draft GEIS. We will then set about preparing the draft GEIS, reviewing it with the town board. And once the town board determines that the draft GEIS adequately covers all the areas that were identified in the scope, the town board will make that draft GEIS public for public hearing, written comment period. From there, a final generic environmental impact statement would be prepared, the main purpose of which is to respond to those substantive public comments received on the GEIS. Once that document's prepared, the town board can issue what's called a finding statement. And that finding statement summarizes the environmental impacts and the mitigation that were disclosed in the EIS and sets forth the town board's rationale for its ultimate decision on the PPR. Once that finding statement is complete, when it's otherwise legally permissible to do so, the town board may take action on the PPR. So where are we today? Again, we're here to discuss the DGEIS scoping outline, which is more or less the table of contents for what will be studied and how it will be studied in the GEIS. So what's included in that outline? First and foremost, the DGEIS will estimate the changes in flight pattern. So the number, the type, the time, frequency, with implementation of the PPR. What will those changes look like at East Hampton Town Airport, Montauk, Gabreski, and the Southampton Heliport? The GEIS will be looking at impacts to land use and community character based on those changes in flight patterns, as well as noise and traffic, vehicular traffic. Be looking specifically at aircraft noise. We'll model changes in the noise based on changes in the operations of those various airports. We'll look at vehicular traffic and transportation, including in and around the airports, as well as a potential for a shift from aircraft travel to ground-based travel to affect traffic patterns. Energy, air quality, and climate change will also be addressed. And then one of the key components of SEEKR is an analysis of alternatives. There's the no action alternative, which is required by SEEKR. Another alternative that's being considered is the closure of the airport. And then finally, we'll be looking at a suite of alternative PPR restrictions. And the goal here, again, going back to that GEIS concept, is to look at a suite of policy options and kind of identify the range of potential impacts available that would occur from those different policy implementation, so the town board has as much information as possible to make an ultimate decision. So again, today we're receiving public comment on the draft DGEIS scope, comments accepted through January 27th, which is a week from this Friday. There's a dedicated email address here up on the screen, which you may send to which you may send your comments, and you may also mail them to the town clerk, in addition to making them at today's public scoping session. So happy to answer any questions from the board. Otherwise, happy to listen to the comments from today.
Does the board have any questions for Peter or Dan?
No, not yet.
Okay. So we have one person signed up to speak here, Kelly Bloss.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Bloss. I am a resident, full-time resident of Montauk, and I'm here to provide input on the draft GEIS scope with particular focus on the scope, the methodology, and what I think will be significant impacts that need to be studied as a result of a diversion of traffic to Montauk. I'll primarily focus on three areas: vehicular traffic and public safety, quality of life, and the ecological impacts. With respect to vehicular traffic and public safety, I think the study parameters need to be modified to study the traffic on East Lake Drive and the egress points off of Route 27, specifically Old West Lake Drive, West Lake Drive, Flamingo Avenue, South Edgemere Street, Industrial Road, Second House Road, and Old Montauk Highway. And currently, right now, the study only consists of intersection points off of New York Route 27. The study should also consider the type of traffic. East Lake Drive is a dead-end road with no shoulders and no sidewalks. It's trafficked by cars, trucks, tractor trailers, 5,000-pound RVs, bicycles, e-bikes, scooters, motorcycles, and pedestrians. So the study period that's in the draft GEIS, I believe also needs to get expanded to cover 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a year period based on those change in parameters. And right now, the methodology is a little random and episodic, as the study will monitor just weekday morning or evening peak hours, non-holiday weekend peak hours in July or August, one holiday or weekend peak hour period. So I think there should be an extended study period. The vehicular traffic, the emergency access, and the public safety elements really need the fire department, the EMS, and East Hampton Police to weigh in before anything moves forward. We can't forget the July 3rd tragic accident this past summer where the bicyclist was killed and Montauk was shut off for 5 hours. And it just demonstrates the fragility of the access to and from Montauk. With respect to quality of life, the proposed action is in direct conflict with the town of East Hampton's Hamlet study for Montauk, namely the goal of maintaining, improving, and revitalizing the downtown Montauk's remarkable and charming business district without harming its special character, reducing traffic congestion, improving vehicular circulation and parking, and enhancing and improving the walkability and pedestrian safety of Montauk. With respect to ecological impacts, the area surrounding the Montauk Airport is fragile and potential for environmental degradation with increased aircraft and vehicular traffic. Noise, emissions, and pollution is real. So specifically, there is an 1,126-acre Montauk Park that surrounds the airport. That includes Big Reed Pond, that's a registered national landmark, miles of trails, miles of bridle paths, as well as a extended camping facility where those big RVs camp all summer. The New York State DEC Natural Heritage Program on their environmental resource mapper captures the natural resources on East Lake Drive and the area surrounding Montauk. So the ecology of that area consists of state-regulated freshwater wetlands, significant natural communities, rare plants and animals. In the spirit of time, I won't read through the designated endangered species and threatened species, but also note that Montauk is also underlain by a glacial freshwater aquifer. There's a new owner at the Montauk Airport. The prior diversion studies only represented business plans of the former owners. So there's no data and insight as to what the new owner of the airport intends. With respect to the timeline that was presented, I believe the timeline needs to be changed to reflect this change in scope, the study parameters and durations. Frankly, there won't be any new findings based on old data, and the current draft references that data shall be collected and described for the period November 21 through October 22. So we don't think, I don't think that's appropriate. Also, you would think that if you're capturing input on the scope of the GEIS, you're going to get final approval on the GEIS, and then you would have to conduct the study itself in order to present the findings and make a decision. So I think the timeline that's been presented needs to be revisited. And lastly, you know, the study, particularly with respect to Montauk, shouldn't be accepted or approved until further review and broad acceptance by a majority of Montauk's year-round residents. So it's important to satisfy what the residents have said are important attention points and gain acceptance from the community before we move forward. So thank you, and I appreciate the input.
Thank you, Kelly. Is there anyone else here?
Yes, please, I'd like to speak. My name is Tom Bogdan. I'm a resident of Montauk. Any analysis of the relationship between increased commercial aircraft traffic at the Montauk Airport and its consequences to the town and citizens of Montauk must take into account a much deeper understanding of the ground transportation facts at ground level surrounding the situation. Route 27 is a dead-end road. One and only one way in and out of Montauk. Route 27 is a dead-end road. Only one way in and one way out of Montauk. Upon entering Montauk, Route 27 becomes the 1/2 mile long Montauk Main Street. The very economic and social heart of the hamlet. At this juncture, directly across the street from each other, is a 7-Eleven drive-in, drive-out convenience store, whose corporate management designated this location as the highest grossing individual store in the company's 7,400 national chains stores during the months of June, July, August, and September. Directly across from the 7-Eleven is our IGA, the only supermarket servicing the 3,500 permanent citizens of Montauk and the tens of thousands of tourists who regularly visit Montauk, just across from each other. Once past those two, there are over 60 separate retail businesses, 18 restaurants, 3 banks, 2 churches, 9 New York State mandated pedestrian crossovers. East Hampton Main Street has 4. A Main Street Village Green featuring weekly farmers market, weekly concerts, 4 weekend festivals, 2 art shows, 2 parades, 4 separate athletic events, 2 marathons, and a children's play area. Surrounding and interfacing with Main Street are over 19 hotels, 14 restaurants, real estate offices, professional offices, gasoline stations, and over 25,000 visitors per day, averaging 2.5 guests per hotel room, spending on the average of $250 to $300 a day. That doesn't count lodging, all centered on and around Route 27, Main Street, Montauk. Once past Main Street, East Lake Drive is the only access road to the Montauk Airport. East Lake Drive, a 2-mile, 2-lane, shoulderless, dead-end road. A dead-end road. Only one way in and one way out. And Montauk Airport is at its very end. There are 178 individual family homes on East Lake Drive. If you believe the American Automobile Association statistic of an average of 1.9 autos per family, over 350 residential daily auto trips occur on East Lake Drive, or twice that number, 700 plus, given the one-way to and from aspect of the road. Along with those private dwellings, there are 5 hotels representing 181 rooms, 5 boating marinas representing 365 slips, 7 restaurants, a total seating capacity of 250 seats. Montauk Lake Club, 352 members, 2 highly visited county parks, an 80 slip weekly turnover of RVs in an 80 capacity RV park, 54 parking spaces at the town beach, 2 multi-acre commercial properties in active pursuit of multi-condo development, a planned and approved multi-use commercial maintenance facility and dock for the coming giant offshore power event that will be happening off our lighthouse. And on top of everything, the largest commercial fish packing plant in the entire state of New York. Over 4 million pounds per year of seafood products shipped via the entire length of East Lake Drive on over 150 18-wheeler transports. One final consideration. As stated, Route 27 is a two-lane dead-end road culminating at the Montauk Lighthouse in State Park up the street. That park is recognized as the fastest growing and most popular park in the state of New York, with now, presently, in this past year, of over 100,000 visitors. In order for these 100,000 visitors to visit and exit the park, they must use Route 27, Main Street Montauk, and then negotiate past East Lake Drive, a proven awkward, problematic, and dangerous intersection. All of this, the 7-Eleven, the IGA, the extraordinary busyness of Main Street, the one-way jam-ups of East Lake Drive, the huge traffic to the lighthouse, all of this during the 90 to 100-day period that Montauk Airport will be at its highest volume of commercial air traffic. This is a situation most worthy of deep and significant CEQA study. By the way, all statistics and reference data I used is available to anybody for further study. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And I would just recommend, Kelly and Tom, if you could, send your thoughtfully prepared statements to the email address so that everything gets captured. Great. Thank you. Erin?
Good morning, council members. My name is Erin Sweeney. I'm with the East Hampton Community Alliance. We will be submitting formal comments, but I just wanted to touch base and give you a few of our initial insights today. First is the scoping document makes reference to a quote, increased air traffic for decades. Well, I guess this is broadly true. We want to draw attention to the fact that the traffic decreased last year by, I think, about 25%. So just the notion that the traffic keeps increasing year over year isn't entirely accurate. So we just want to make sure that that's reflected in the document. Second, we note that the EHCA diversion study will be included in the study. We're grateful for that. Next, the scoping document states that the town will conduct an analysis of flight operations and how they've changed. We also want to make sure that there's an analysis over the last couple of years with COVID, what that means, what we're expecting that to mean going forward, because the traffic sort of, it wasn't typical for the last couple of years. Next, there's reference also made to the East Hampton Community Alliance Economic Impact Study. In our written comments, we'll give a sort of a better defense of how we got the number at 75 million, the contribution to the local economy. So just wanted to place a note on that. And then the last thing is we appreciate your mention of the economic and social justice impact on surrounding communities. And we'll certainly be monitoring that impact. So thank you for all you've done so far. And we look forward to submitting comments next week. Thanks.
Thanks, Erin. Is there anyone else here?
We do have a phone, somebody on the phone line.
Okay, great. We'll get to them in a minute, Jason. Thank you.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Richard Shane. I'm chairman of the board of the Montauk Fire District. There's been a lot said regarding the environment, traffic input effects on all of Montauk. Personally, I have no opinion whatsoever about the closing of the airport in East Hampton. However, the board does have concerns regarding the safety, the responsibility that the fire district and fire department would have in attending to the increased traffic should the airport close in East Hampton, that Montauk will occur. It's a very serious situation. In my experience, we've had at least 6 plane crashes in Montauk, even with its limited use over the past The fire department in East Hampton maintains a crash vehicle in East Hampton. For an incident to occur in Montauk, we are at least 20 minutes away due to the location of the airport. It's on the end of East Lake. I'm not sure whether we would be required, whether it would be responsible to have a crash truck located at the airport in Montauk should the increased quantity of traffic that is expected. That would come at a great cost to the taxpayers of Montauk, and I think that has to be taken into consideration. A crash truck would be easily in excess of $1 million. The airport in Montauk is privately owned. I don't know if they would be required to put up a structure to maintain and store this crash truck. The airport in East Hampton is town-owned, and they have plenty of facilities there. They don't have those facilities at the airport in Montauk. It's not only a matter of funding, which the taxpayers of Montauk would have to provide. You're talking about an increase of some, quite frankly, over $2 million between the cost of putting up a structure and providing a crash vehicle. Not doing that would put, especially if commercial flights increase to the degree that I'm told it would be increased, puts people at risk, both from an EMS standpoint, because responding to the airport from our location in Montauk presently is minimum 20 minutes, if not more, by the time we get a crew together and then proceed down that 3.5-mile stretch of East Lake. It's time consuming. So I guess what I'm asking is that the board look into, one, who is responsible for providing fire suppression service at the airport? Two, who is responsible for paying for it? Is this going to be put on the owners, the current owners of the airport, because it is a privately owned airport, or are the taxpayers of Montauk going to be footing the bill? And I think these are important subjects, and I think they should be addressed, or at the very least, investigated. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Is there anyone else in the room that wishes to speak? Jason, you said you had someone on the phone?
We did, Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez, but the problem is that after I said that, they quickly hopped off the phone. So
Okay.
as of right now, we currently don't have anyone.
Okay. So I guess then we'll move on. Dan and Peter, is there anything you want to say before we conclude today's scoping session?
Thank you, Kathy. No, if there's no callers on the line, obviously we welcome written comments, and the time period for doing so is through January 27th. There's no weight that's accorded to oral versus written comments. It's the substance, the value of the thoughts, like our last speaker. So all of that is helpful, and you can move on.
Great.
If you don't mind, Deputy Supervisor, as Dan just mentioned, public comments are going to be accepted through January 27th, 2023 at 4 p.m. You can email them to ehamptonairportscope@ehamptony.gov. You can also mail your comments to the East Hampton Town Clerk, Town of East Hampton, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, New York, 11937.
Great, thank you. Tom, did you want to make another comment? Okay, great. All right, beautiful. Thank you. All right, so now we'll move on to our last topic, which is community Wi-Fi and beaches, which Council Member David Leese will lead that discussion. We're just going to give everybody just a minute.
Thank you for coming.
to-
I miss Pat. Well, good morning, everyone. Still good morning.
Yes.
Today, I wanted to introduce a topic at this work session that I've been interested in implementing for a couple of years now. Simply put, is free public and community Wi-Fi at selected beaches and recreational sites within the town of East Hampton. Just as COVID was hitting, I started to have conversations with town staff about how to potentially add free Wi-Fi to select town beaches. I know that we have briefly had discussions about this to the town board in the past, but I think now we have more time to dedicate this to this potential initiative and enough lead time to potentially get this in place by summer if the board so wanted to. Amid COVID, I think what we all realize is that it was critical to have internet and wireless connectivity that one can trust and always access. We did this on Zoom. We're doing it here. And many of our residents crave for it still. While as a township, we are addressing many of the issues that surround wireless infrastructure through our town's commissioned wireless master plan. There are currently ways in which I think the town could look at how we could add to selected sites and targeted sites to offer residents and visitors free Wi-Fi access. Adding Wi-Fi at selected beach locations would be beneficiary for many, mostly mainly residents and visitors and town staff. This was also discussed recently the last 2 years at the town's beach advisory committee, and it's been recommended to the installation of dependable Wi-Fi for safety reasonings, as it would aid in a line of communications for lifeguards at beaches where dependable self-service at times is lacking, either by reception or by also as council member, Rogers always says the bandwidth of it sometimes gets clogged up. Another component of this initiative would be adding public visible cameras to certain areas. These are a lot like the cameras that you might see on Channel 12 News or on other TV programming that might show an intersection or a beach or such. Two of these locations that I would like the board to discuss, being Gin Beach and Maidstone Park, would provide views potentially of the navigational channels, which we currently don't have. And that there's a measurement of security that would be there then too that we can use because it would be in real time. We would also want to allow for part of an RFP that would be going out to, if the board so chooses, to allow for use of the static IP address for additional desired projects. And this could be for security and needs, or also for potentially adding even more Wi-Fi then too. I would anticipate a free Wi-Fi RFP. The respondents to be similar to public Wi-Fi that we see at our airports. I'm not going to name them now, but as you know, sometimes you go to airports, there's free Wi-Fi, and other municipalities that are installing this. The entire system I would want to recommend be installed by the respondent at their total cost, moderated and maintained by the respondent also then too. So the town would license or allow for the locations, but the moderator and the ownership of the equipment would be the respondent. So they would fix it. They would take the questions from the people, from anyone using it. The respondent would allow for access. I could potentially see it, as I've seen at other locations, where the respondent will allow for access after an initial logon process, and then have free Wi-Fi to use. Individuals do not have to use this public Wi-Fi if they don't decide to at a location. It is a service that would be provided for free, but the choice to use the service is the end user's discretion. Other local municipalities have recently used this out here on the East End, some being locations in East Hampton Village, Sag Harbor, Southampton Town. West Hampton Beach is also implementing this. That's just locally. I think we see it a lot more municipalities and locations also. Primarily, the locations I would be interested in doing this as just a start right now. We can always add on more as we want it, would be our beaches and some of our parklands. I've been interested to see if the town board would be interested in installing these at Maidstone Park Beach and Springs, Atlantic Avenue Beach and Megansit, Gin Beach and Montauk, where there's 54 parking spots, as we just heard. The Montauk Skate Park, Westlake Comfort Station in Montauk, Dish Plain Beach Comfort Station, and Stephen Hans Path Recreational Facility. All these locations, except for one, have a comfort station, and many of them have been vandalized over the years habitually. part about this is being able to add that infrastructure for future use potentially for security for the town. So that's the discussion point on here. There's no real maps. People know about this. People have seen it. It would be an open RFP that we put out, and we can see who the respondents are. It's an option for us to be able to have this instituted for the residents and visitors without a cost to the taxpayer, which I think is always great. But there's a benefit to the taxpayer and the users of a Wi-Fi on there then too. Again, it's a system that you don't have to use, but it's there. So questions to the board might be, do you like this project? Would you support going out to an RFP? Do you like the locations that we've described? Again, we can decrease or add, as we want to, as a license might be given out. What type of length of the license would be interesting to board members? And maybe, if not now, if we think about it, are there other locations you might want to do in the future then too? So that's a discussion point I wanted to bring up to the board. I do it at this time as I'm already preparing for the summer. I think a lot of us are right now then too, and we look forward to that. So that's my discussion. I want to see what the board's comments might be on this going forward then too.
Would folks be able to use the Wi-Fi like I can at my house to make calls as well? They hook their phone up to Wi-Fi and I can make Wi-Fi calls. That's how I make calls from my house.
It's a very good question. I don't know. I would anticipate.
So that would be another benefit, I think. And also then you also have to think about capacity. What kind of capacity would be needed for that many people in one location at one time for it to work across the board?
So these are two great, this is great questioning. So I've been discussing this with Eddie Schnell, who assists us a lot with our technology and wireless. And I can go back and ask more of these questions from him, but I would agree to make sure that you have enough of a network and bandwidth for it. And I think Wi-Fi calling would be great in these areas too. I would almost have to have that because part of it is the security issue for lifeguards on public safety, that if they needed to make a phone call, they would need to be able to use that system on there. I would like to say yes to it, but I find more information and get back to you, Kate.
Yeah, I mean, there's a commercial service. We don't have it on the beaches in our town, but we have it on some of the roads. I know there's frequently that I use is a camera on the corner of Route 139 and Montauk Highway where it meets there. And I always check what's going on with the traffic. It's quite useful. I think it would be a benefit to have free public community Wi-Fi at our beaches.
So there is Optima Online has hotspots on Wi-Fi mesh network out here, but it's not as complete as other locations, maybe further west. But you also have to be an Optimum member then too.
So you're excluded if you're not. It's also a little unwieldy. You have to like try 3 or 4 times to get it to connect sometimes, and it drains the battery of your phone significantly.
Good point. If we put this out, is there a certain length of the license potentially that you would be comfortable with offering for the first initial test on this that we can always potentially reach out? 3, I think there has to be recruitment, there's a cost that they're gonna be putting in and too.
So David, what does the equipment look like?
So the equipment looks like maybe 2 or 3 panels of this that would be on a post outside of whatever structure it would be. That would be the repeaters, if you want to call it, the broadband. So it's not big, 18 by 12 is what we've seen pretty typically being used. This is a little smaller than that too. So they're white. If you like to up at Main Beach, they have them on top of the beach pavilion up there. On there, those are what are used for the Wi-Fi. The camera is typically a little bit of a larger bullet camera that would be more weather resistant on there then too. And it's typically always in the same area because of the run needed for electricity that's on there. So that's what I would anticipate, but I can get more information on that too for you.
So in the RFP, who owns the equipment and what would happen if it's vandalized?
I would put in the RFP that the equipment would be owned by the licensee,
Okay.
and that if it's vandalized, that the maintenance would be part of the licensee to repair.
Okay.
Yeah, and get it back. I don't want to own the equipment, or maintain it. I
Right.
want to allow someone to offer it on there then too, but we can confirm that.
So some airports, I know you mentioned airports that have free Wi-Fi, but some airports don't have free Wi-Fi. They have Wi-Fi, but you are charged by the hour, or you get $10, you can be there for 3 hours kind of thing. Would you consider something like that?
I think it'd be better if it's free. If we could find a respondent that would keep everything free. I don't look for this to be a revenue stream for anyone. I think it's a service that we should try to provide more often out here on there. Because in that, does the revenue go to the licensee or to the town? I think the benefit to the town is,
Not sure.
Yeah.
The benefit to to whoever responds to the RFP and wins it is that they're collecting email addresses, correct?
That's
Exactly.
You're getting,
Yes, every time you log in at an airport, that you have to give them your email address. So
correct.
they have all this information, and that is very important.
right. But folks know that going in, right?
Yeah.
You have to make that decision whether, do you really want to have the free Wi-Fi? There's a
Right.
trade-off.
Part of it is eventually, if it was having IP addresses, static IP address that the town could potentially use for other projects on there. There's a cost savings to the town in those locations, and it could be upwards of thousands of dollars a year.
Wait, explain that again.
So
Sorry.
to have a camera system,
Yep.
security camera system,
Right.
you need a static IP address
Okay. I
to be able to go back to wherever everything's being monitored
Right.
on there. You would have to have it installed, and besides being installed, you would have to have it. There's a monthly charge, just like your home Optimum Online or whoever service provider you use.
Yep.
That's a cost, and typically, it could be $1,200 to $1,500 a year per location. That's residential. I don't know if we're considered commercial. We would have to look into it,
Yeah.
but it's about that range. So, for each location. So there could be a cost savings if we ever wanted to put security cameras at these locations then too.
Okay.
So, there could be a multi-$1,000 cost savings to the town in the end also.
But then you're also looking at a really solid security system so that you can't access into that static IP address.
It'd be very similar to what we have at our docks right now, head of the harbor. We have a security systems down there they're actually wireless to an IP address, and also in Montauk and too. So in Gann Road. So each one of those, there's just a cost. There's a fixed cost that we pay every year to have that system up. Here, if we were able to piggyback a town security system onto this initiative on there, the town wouldn't have to pay for that fixed yearly cost on there. So that could be a benefit there then too. That might be okay.
I meant like a hack security, an intrusion through a static Wi-Fi address. That's public. We would just have to make sure that was
That's
not
correct.
a possibility.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's what the respondent would have to actually explain and provide then too, the narrative of what the criteria of expertise in this, what type of systems they would be putting in there then too. That's we're been working with Jeannie Carroza and Eddie to look at how other municipalities have put out RFPs for this also that cover a lot of these questions on there. Then
We should
too.
probably bring Heath in too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts on this, David, is we're past the pilot stage. I mean, this is something that I believe we need to provide as a service. And so I would add Indian Wells Beach. I would, add the beaches on the Bayside, where we've got our NIPR program going on, where we've got lifeguards. Any beach that has a lifeguard, I think, should have the service.
So right now their connection is through walkie-talkie type instruments when there's an emergency that happens.
And cell phones.
Yeah, they also tie into the town's emergency communication systems too.
So I guess from my perspective, if we're putting a lifeguard at a beach, it's because that's where people come. So, anywhere where people gather, it would make sense to have the Wi-Fi.
Okay, but we do have the ability under our emergency communications that we're already, you make it sound as though we're not.
Oh, no. I just,
Yeah.
my thing is if we've made that decision to have a guarded beach, it's because we've got folks showing up
Yes.
there
Yeah.
to spend the day.
Yeah, and I would continue the dependence on the emergency communication
Yeah, I
system
would
and have
too.
this as a
Yeah,
backup.
no, this is an
I'm sure there's
extra
no
additional
question.
layer.
It also will help people to bring their work to the beach and they can still work.
Well, that's another issue that I would, kids and teenagers and even adults have screen time that I would probably not like to see at the beach. I would probably like that resource to be much more of, this is where you relax, it's peaceful, you go there, not to have that. And if there's noise coming, if someone's down there with a movie and disturbing the guy next door to him, I'm not there.
Yeah, they can do
So-
that now though, through cellular service.
Yeah.
So I'm still, it's
There's
more
some beach, I've
difficult,
had a
but-
beach that you can't have that, Sylvia, and I love it.
But that's
And that's parenting too. Yeah,
Well,
I don't,
that's
yeah,
it.
get off your phone, you're hanging out
Yeah.
with family.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's
That's
just,
the look I get,
I know.
you know,
I
but
know.
yeah, I
So
got you. I understand what you're saying.
I have some reservations about this, and those are my reservations.
Sure.
That if we are already have the emergency that services that we need, I think providing this and some people find their beaches sanctuaries. Some people find their parks, their trails, all of these are places of sanctuary and why they're here. So I have a little bit of trouble with saying now let's just have all these kids. And of course, Indian Wells is a locals only beach. I don't know. I have some reservations. Let me put it that way.
No one's forcing anyone to use it. This is,
If you build it, they will come kind of situation. So,
but they're
and
every
every
using it.
every kid, every teenager has one of these because their parents want to
Yeah.
know where they are.
But just so the
Okay.
technology of what they're doing now, they download the movie or the music before they go to the beach and then they play it now. So it's not like you're creating something that doesn't, an opportunity that doesn't already exist, unfortunately. And I agree with you on
Yeah.
not needing anything other than what where
Yeah.
you are at the
Completely
time
agree
in
with
the
you.
place.
No, I agree with you on the parenting aspect of it.
Well,
And-
you're
and the
there,
same
you're
thing,
in the midst
yeah.
of it with the ages of your
Yeah,
kids.
mhm.
And, so I understand. I just, as I said,
That's what I was trying to say, but more, like, I know Kathy, you're saying we're there already, but as a test, we try these locations to see what the results might be. Is there a middle ground to see if this works for a certain time frame, and then you can expand it or not. Then too, I would prefer trying it out to see if we can find a provider or situations that people might like.
so
That might be best.
where has the push to do this come from in your mind, David or Kathy? Because you've also said you think we're behind in not doing something like this. Where is that coming from?
So first of all, a recommendation from a town organized committee on there then too. There's a lot of people that go to the beaches that want Wi-Fi instead of self-service because self-service is spotty if they're actually want to be on their phones doing work or such. There's a lot of individuals during COVID that have now come out east with their families that are trying to participate in the fabric of volunteerism out here that are living out here, but need to make sure they have connectivity during a Wednesday or Thursday during the summer, no non-school days with their kids, to be able to do some business from other areas than here. That's a segment of our population that we've seen in our census only increased that we, might have to provide a potential service for so that they can be full-timers out here then too, and maybe increase our volunteerism. That's an option also then too. It's something that we're seeing that remote connectivity right now is almost demanded for. And by adding another secure layer to it, or secure is the wrong word, a reliable layer to it, I think it's something that a township should look into doing.
I think free Wi-Fi in communities and towns and states and across the nation for a number of reasons, including, equality reasons. to be able to have free Wi-Fi everywhere, which is, takes you off the $200 a month cost. I know that's not what you're proposing, but I know many municipalities and even states are looking to provide free Wi-Fi across communities for that reason.
Yeah, I've heard those ones as far as the
Yeah, I mean, New York
quality
City has it.
of internet access. Yeah. I know, and some are providing it that way then too. I mean, the cost to the internet and the cost to others then too. But I would look at this as a test to see if it works in our township. Can we go out and see if we even get a respondent into it? What would be deemed a success if we move forward on this then too? Are there other locations on it? I think it's a good action to go forward where there's different layers of benefits to the town. That could be from security to business capacity to family life the way it is right now, even though I don't agree with. I'm not going to get in that.
Well,
one.
I mean, you can also, I'm wondering if
Yeah.
we could go back and look at the personal wireless service poll where, connectivity came back so strong. If there's a way to, extrapolate data from that.
Yeah, I saw one in the research for this. There was a poll that went out in 2019, pretty much pre-COVID, that said
In East Hampton?
no.
Oh.
This is a nationwide one. There's a lot of information out there on this because so many communities are doing it. That said, nearly 50% of individuals of a certain age group would want to join onto a Wi-Fi, which means 50% don't. But I can get them and circle that around then too.
I think the connectivity is a plus as we, continue to look for to cover coverage gaps now, rather than just constantly thinking one way. This is certainly another way to provide that if it was able to have the capacity for Wi-Fi calls.
Yeah, and I'm looking targeted right now. I would sort of respectfully disagree. I think we should just go to certain areas to see are they working there? Are people actually using this? If no one uses it.
And lifeguarded hours are fixed. People enjoy our beaches before and after lifeguarded hours. They're out there without any connectivity. So again, I think that's something to consider as well.
If I go out and try to find some more of these questions out there through Eddie and working with Jeannie and go discussing this with Heath, I think it's mostly going to be Eddie on there, but of course I'll discuss this with Heath. I'll give this back to the board. I could see an RFP going out for 2-3 weeks, very similar to what we did with the Tesla chargers. Maybe making a final determination by March 1st, which will allow for a potential vendor, if we find a vendor that we agree on, that might be able to purchase equipment and install equipment. That might not be until the end of April, which means we're into May.
Yeah.
That's why the discussion, I think, has to sort of happen around now. So with that, I'll take the questions back, Sylvia, Kate, Kathy, and I know Peter will probably have someone upon his return, and I'll get some more information out, within the next week.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to liaison reports. David, you want to start?
Sure. Big curveball there.
Sorry.
Okay. See here. Where are? Okay. A couple updates on. First of all, happy birthday, Sylvia.
You're
not gonna get away with this.
I thought I was getting away with
I'm
it.
reading the list there. Happy birthday to you, Sylvia.
Thank you.
too.
That's very
Happy
kind.
birthday, Sylvia.
There we go.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And that's on my liaison report for the day. I want to let everyone know that Beacon Wind, which is offshore wind project, they are actually the PSC is having their public statement hearings. They're going to be doing this on January 24th of this year. They're also having some more information on January 23rd about call and hearings anymore. They want to want more information about this, please contact the Public Service Commission on there then too. We are continuing to working with town staff about Montauk bottomlands inventory. This relates back to docks that are on town bottomlands that typically have leases. We've had some requests for more bottomland leases, but we are doing a thorough global look at all bottomlands in Lake Montauk. And working with the working committee, we'll come back with hopefully some recommendations to the board event very shortly that will give us potential pathways for policy about rates of charging and such like that. This has been something that's been going on for absolutely decades, but sort of fall off the radar. And I think we got to get back to it nice and fairly then too. See where I'm at. Last week, I mentioned that a lot of people say that the town board doesn't do anything. I'm going to come with a little bit of a list here because I know we don't have a meeting for a little bit of the things that we are doing and the update of what we do. Some of these will cross over to other board members' work and projects, but here it is. Give me the moment, please, if you don't mind. The Little League ball fields are under construction. I was down there very early this morning. There's a beehive of activity down there by Land Tech. Most recently, we received the FAA determination of there's no hazard to navigation for all the lights because it isn't one of the flight paths, which is great. They're installing the fencing today. Drainage is going in. They're putting in the pylons for the netting. And they're moving ahead at a fantastic pace, specifically since the weather has been great right now. So electrical are on site, contract forms are on site, and they're moving ahead very, very well there. Also part of that project, the town is going to be investing into the restoration of the CDCH's playground and also the basketball court there, which is great because it is a large facility. We want to, that's going to be getting a lot of use. Also completed was the removal of a lot of damaged trees that have been there from southern pine beetles that were in areas in which the public was going. We wanted to get those down prior to the construction work and the finishing work on there. There's still more to do, but mainly what we got down, the ones that would be more difficult to work on or remove if if the construction of the ball fields got too far ahead. It's unfortunate to see, but a lot of our forests are completely damaged and scarred by the southern pine beetles right now.
Yep.
The Stephen Hand's Path Drainage Project is moving along right now. The contractor is installing the major drainage piping on there. They are still on construction schedule. That is a multi-million-dollar project right now to alleviate drainage onto Stephen Hand's Path. They will be coordinating again with the state, who will be letting their project out for their design of the intersection there sometime midsummer to potentially be constructed in 2024. Part of the drainage project right now would also be adding stamped bike lanes that would show connectivity from Route 114 over to where there are other bike lanes on the county road along lane. So we would be able now to have safe bike lanes that would go all the way connecting intermodal connection from Sag Harbor to East Hampton Village. That was a stretch that was never there and it's been requested in the past. So we're making sure we're continuing that initiative too of adding bike lanes to our roads where appropriate and allowed. At Brooks Park, the fencing, the perimeter fencing has been installed. The town board requested that. That is going to be security fencing that is metal and strong to keep out any individuals from that location. That was complete last week also. Star Island Dock right now, that's another multi-million-dollar project that the town has taken on. It helps out our commercial fishing industry and one of the largest port in not just the town of East Hampton, but also in the state of New York. We've had delays in procurement of appropriate wood. All the wood has been, not all of it, but the majority of the wood has arrived, and we look forward to the contractor moving ahead with installation of that at a rapid pace. As you heard from Jeannie, the head of the harbor, power pedestals, that is on the east side where we are replacing the power pedestals there because they keep getting swamped over. As you saw in the last storm that hit on the 23rd of December. It was the second highest storm surge since Sandy, and they were completely inundated with salt water right now. This is the second phase of a multi-million-dollar project that the town of East Hampton initiated a couple of years ago, in which we increased the height of the bulkheading, redid the bulkheading, and also the power pedestals on the southern side. Now we're doing the eastern side of 3 Mile Harbor. Again, it shows the town's board's resolve to our infrastructure and specifically recreational boating and actually some commercial boating that is down there right now. So I thank the board for moving ahead on that part of the project, which ends up completing a multi-million-dollar phased-in project.
And we're doing this probably to address climate change.
That's correct.
And
Yeah.
so we wouldn't have to spend this money if we didn't have to.
And the
Exactly.
location that we're in then too, you
Yes.
know, but you're exactly right, Sylvia. As you heard from Jeannie, we are going to be going out for the first ever town pickleball courts, going to bid for the construction of the first ever town pickleball courts in Montauk. And we're looking to also to resurface or reconstruct the basketball court now that would be on the same location closer to the skate park then too. In Montauk, as we discussed recently, part of a grant project, the town of East Hampton is going to continue working on replacing ADA mats and curbing in Montauk right now that are starting to become a little bit more, they get banged up, let's just be honest, through plowing and such. Putting in nearly $80,000 into curbing and ADA matting and that installation in Montauk. 2 new IA systems have been or are being installed at our part of our priority IA system replacements. The one at Stephen Hand's Path has been complete. That's installed right now. That finished up last week, just to let everyone know. Again, that was part of looking at the scheduling of that program prior to the completion of the ball fields, because there will be new asphalt put on. The one thing about that project, the IA system installation, is that the asphalt hasn't been installed because we're waiting for the asphalt plants to open up and do it in conjunction then also with the larger project that's happening there. We have received and we are authorizing the IA installation of a new IA system that would be at Montauk Lions Field that hopefully will be going in. I've requested that construction does not interfere with the Little League Little League season that is fast approaching out there. As another location that we're looking into increasing our IA system, one of our most used comfort stations would be the Westlake Comfort Station in Montauk. Rolling right into that one, the Westlake Comfort Station in Montauk is ready for demolition. It will be demoed probably in the next couple of weeks. Part of that multi-$100,000 project is completely bringing a brand new comfort station on site there. This comfort station has been there at least since the 1960s. The town's gotten their money worth out of that one, but it's needed. It's in the need of being ADA, energy efficient, and just also a new look. It's well worth it out there in that commercial area then too. Part of this, the town board last week has authorized a funding source for fisheries gear storage. It's another way that the town of East Hampton is looking to assist our fisheries industries for gear storage. It's going to be the first ever location that we're doing that. So the town board I thank the town board for moving on with that also then too. Steve Lynch and Highway is doing a lot of sidewalk installations. Most recently, they did Indian Wells, Cedar Street, Old Montauk Highway. He continues to do a good job at this work, and we will continue to do more sidewalk installation and rehabilitations on a yearly capital project plan. Springs Library, which I know Kate is also working on, it's coming close to completion. That was over a $500,000 project in which we looked at multiple different phases. This last phase was to fix the bathroom and the ramps. We had to work with the ARB for some specific doors or on back order, but we're getting very close to finishing that project off right now at the Springs Library, which is also on the National Historical Register. The Cove Hollow outfall pipe, which everyone's familiar with, is a legacy drainage issue that's going from 114 all the way down to Cove Hollow through one big drain. That's been a long project, but we're working along with the village, other stakeholders in that area, including the Friends of George Capon, to look at the final design and permitting process. So that's still moving ahead and moving forward on there. Nothing's been finalized, but it hasn't been forgotten, and it's been great to see that work go together with the village and also the area of Georgia. The intersection of Rough Riders, which is, yes, it is a taxing district, road improvement taxing district, but again, it is going to be helpful going to the 10 highway system. That construction timeframe is looking to start in March into April. be about 8 to 10 week project in which that intersection, which habitually floods and hasn't been maintained because it's a UR road right now, that would be changing for the benefit of the residents of Montauk. Lastly, the John Behan Memorial is moving forward with discussions with John Behan's widow and family, Marilyn Behan. I'm allowed to call her Marilyn now. It's tough.
You're
Trying.
grown up.
I'm trying. It's just, it's tough. Anyway, we're moving ahead with that. She has requested assistance from the town about having a dedicated funding line where individuals can donate money to the project, but it would go through the town. So we look forward to putting that onto a resolution as an option for people to donate money to that project. And they've taken the sign down there to be rehabbed, and we're still trying to look to have that done potentially by Memorial Day of this year. I want to let everyone know the Montauk Beach overpasses are closed. The storm on the 23rd ripped them apart. One of them is completely ripped apart. Just because the overpasses are closed doesn't mean beach access is closed or the beach is closed. The overpasses are closed or are closed because of safety factors, but there's public beach access down at South Edison and South Eton if anyone would like to go to the beach on there. But the overpasses are closed and they have been duly signed and marked on there then too. Overall, this is just oh, and I got more. Sorry. Second house.
There's more.
Wait, there's more. What you also heard about second house, we rejected the bids because the bids came in much higher than we are anticipating. I've been working with the Montauk Historical Society, also with Drew Bennett and Bob Hefner, about separating into two phases instead of one phase for the last project. We would like to go out and rebid the next phase, which would be for mechanicals, electrical work, installations, and insulation on there. We all agree that'd be the best way to keep this project moving ahead with the funding. The funds are there. I'm hoping that as we're starting to see certain things in our economy start to settle, that we might be able to get some better prices on this now too. Again, this shows the town's commitment to the town board's commitment to the town of East Hampton, to the residents, to the taxpayers, for continue to keep our infrastructure maintained and also add on other forms of recreation and needs throughout the town of East Hampton in many different ways and many different hamlets. I thank you very much. And that's my liaison report.
Thank you, David.
Sylvia, you want to go next?
Sure. I actually have a very short one compared. We moved some of the business, two committees that I would have been reporting on, business and anti-bias, are meeting tomorrow, actually, instead of last week. So I will have that first time that we meet in February, bring you up to date. And Friday, we will have the first visit by Michael Devonshire and his crew for the site assessment for Brooks Park. And so we hope that that project gets moving along as well. And I also want to talk about the Indian Wells sidewalks that are brand new and up and easy access, a smoother access to get to walk down to the beach on Indian Wells. And that's really all I have.
Great. Kate? Yes, thank you. Tonight is our spring CAC meeting at Ashwell Hall, open to the public. It begins at 6 p.m. I ask that all of us approach our committees that we're liaisons to and ask them to send the information to me, or if you'll click the information so we can update their pages on our website for 2023 as far as membership, when meetings meet, and anything else you'd like to put up there. David mentioned this Springs ADA library. I thank improvements, the Springs Library ADA improvements. And I thank you, David, for all your help over the year on that project. Again,
Peter led a lot of that.
And Peter,
yeah.
I'd like to thank Peter as well. I also remind everyone that I will be attending a mini forum on composting. That's table to farm composting for food scraps. We pay for a lot of food scraps to be moved out of our recycling center. The landfills up west are closing. Brookhaven landfill will be closing, and it'll only become more costly as we go down the line. Southold and Riverhead have implemented pilot programs that were very successful on returning food scraps to farms for composting. And I look forward to all the help that everyone has offered from the North Fork on helping getting a similar pilot program going in East Hampton for this year. The Litter Action Committee met, and Kevin Cooper, the Director of Code Enforcement, was a guest speaker. It was, again, a very informative meeting on the town codes regarding littering, regarding the securing of dumpsters and garbage at construction sites, and covering of and securing loads of that are going to the recycling centers, to cut down on the litter problem that is increasing in our town. The Litter Action Committee is very busy, and a very great group of folks that want to create changes. So we are looking at everything from some code changes that will need to be made to clarify secured load versus covered load. It should be both. And there's some discrepancy in certain code sections. Also to talk about the codes for covering dumpsters, et cetera, just to make it all conforming to each other. They are proposing and giving out flyers to contractors when they apply for their license on the rules for containing the construction debris, and also for homeowners when they're picking up their permit for the using the recycling centers on what the loads, what the rules are for there. They are planning clarification also on the receptacle code, as receptacles for outdoor dining and for takeout food establishments need to be placed. They need one, but it's not clear where they need to be placed. And we want to make an outreach to business owners on best practices, and also have a little forum with business owners who are doing great stuff, and to be able to share ideas with other businesses to cut down on litter. They had a debrief of their meeting with Steve Lynch over the signage at the recycling centers, and also going over the Adopt a Road program and how the committee can help the highway department organize and administer that program. And where Steve was very informative, where litter hotspots are. So they can help do cleanups there. And they are getting together to create their spring no fling outreach, which will begin in the spring of this year. And that'll be a multi-pronged approach to doing outreach for proper disposal of litter, and please don't think before you toss. They're also working on the Litter Action Committee page on our website, and creating again radio ads for LNG that we've done in the past year. They're going to review all the ads and update them all. And then I have a South Fork Wind is continuing their demobilization process on Beach Lane of the HDD work. Again, I just want to remind everybody that the sound wall will be the last thing to come down to keep all that sound attenuated while they restore that area. And they're working on the Cove Hollow construction at the substation. That work is continuing above ground and below ground as well. And that's what I got.
Great. I wanted to touch base on the new senior center. I had a meeting with R2 after the presentation on Tuesday, and they've drafted a memo. I sent that out to board members last night, but I'd just like to read it so that the public hears. So R2 Architecture virtually attended a town board work session on Tuesday, January 10th, 2023, to present in more detail 2 schemes for the future East Hampton Senior Center, Linear and Windmill. 3 town board members had additional questions. This memorandum serves to address these questions so that the preferred design can be selected by the town board. So questions raised. Peter Van Scoyoc on the cost of the building, long-term maintenance, and rooftop solar suitability for the different schemes. Sylvia Overby on the overall cost and parking configuration, Kate Rogers on the solar suitability, parking configuration, suitability for septic systems, and thoughts about a net zero building. R2's responses. 1, cost. R2 noted that at this schematic design stage, the cost is an order of magnitude based on square footage. There are no significant cost differences between the linear and windmill schemes. 2, solar. R2 noted that all schemes will need about 13,000 square feet of solar panels. Solar can be supported in either scheme with possible locations on the roof or within the parking lot. For next steps, R2 has both Atelier 10 as a specific sustainability consultant on this project and Kohler Ronan as our mechanical, electrical, plumber, and fire protection engineers to augment the R2 team in developing a solar response to further development of schematic design. 3, net zero. R2 with Atelier 10 and Kohler Ronan will recommend a net zero response, exploring the various means and methods to attain the net zero goal in further development of schematic design. 4, parking. The parking shows as a placeholder 2 variations for the amount of space needed for 120 cars for each scheme to show surface coverage. Current parking will be adjusted in the future phases in coordination with our traffic engineer to optimize its location of the building. Questions about parking along the pole section of the site can be studied to avoid backing up clashes. The pole is 83 feet in width and would need to be 64 feet in width to meet town standards. 5, septic. The team will design a code-compliant septic system that will be the same septic system for either the linear or windmill scheme. Next steps. 1, this summation memo would be read into the record for the next town board meeting as R2's recommendation for the town board to select a preferred design. 2, R2 will work with the engineering and specialty consultants to develop the plans, taking into consideration the various questions raised by board members and develop design into a buildable solution. 3, R2 will coordinate with an arborist and clearing contractor on the necessary services required to clear access to the site to obtain geotechnical tests and borings. And 4, R2 will advise the town of East Hampton when there is sufficient design development to have a future meeting after more specific input from the engineering and specialty consultants. This is anticipated to be within 6 to 8 weeks. So I don't know if board members have questions about what was, raised in the memo. I spoke to John. I think at this point, we need to come forward with decide on the preferred design. And I'd like to do that by resolution on Thursday. I know my preferred design of the 2 is the windmill. I don't know, David, you had already voiced your preference for a design at the meeting last Tuesday, and you were in support of the windmill. Sylvia, I got my understanding was that you hadn't decided on one preferred design, but that you were comfortable with either design.
I think so. The one question I didn't get answered, and I probably didn't phrase it in the form of the right question for them, was how much that the windmill design had that extra road that needed to be constructed in order to get to the kitchen
deliveries.
And all the
Either
deliveries.
design would have, we're hoping to separate the traffic out and have either design would have a delivery, not necessarily a loading dock, but a place where the trucks would go to unload near the kitchen.
So the question is about how much coverage is there going to be because of parking lots and roads?
Yeah, I think it's probably premature for them to give you an answer on that. And because I think what wasn't clear when they presented is that the parking that they showed was really just a placeholder. They wanted us to see what 120 parking spaces would look like on the property. As they said in their memo, now they're going to be bringing in their traffic engineer to figure out what's the best way, to enter the site and have folks move around the site, park and have deliveries.
And I think having in what you just read, and you sent that, thank you, Kathy, for graciously sending that to all of us too, was that there would be some ground mounts in solar. So I'm not for clearing and for more ground mounts, because I think the trees are very important there. So I'd rather see all of this roof
Yeah.
mounted.
We have walked the property
Mhm.
and it is not as wooded as you would think
Right.
on the property. And unfortunately, we've got some trees that are, we've got beech trees that have,
You said, you
disease.
mentioned
We've
it
got the
once, yeah.
pitch pines. I mean, we had, was it oak tree or maple that had that white oozing coming down the bark?
No, that was a pine.
that was a pine
like pitch
too?
pine. I don't know if that was infected or not, but
Yeah.
it was something.
So-
Doesn't sound good.
Yeah, it
Let's put
doesn't
that
sound
way.
good.
No way.
So, I have photos if anybody wants to see
Yeah.
them. But yeah, there's a lot of trees that are
So those are
diseased.
minor things,
right.
but that might sway me one way or the other,
Mhm.
which way to go and what's gonna be more efficient.
But I think as far as keeping a record, and this memo is going to go on the town website where we've got, under current projects, we have the new senior center has its own dedicated page. We would include this memo there. And Kate? since we're going
Yeah,
down
for
the-
me, I also noticed when we walk the property, because it is deceiving. If there's a way to, it's the perimeter of the property that seems to have the thickest tree line vegetation on it. When you get inside, it gets quite sparse, which was surprising. I guess that's because there's no real light, or deer browsing has just taken out the understory completely. There's really not much understory
That's too bad.
there as well, which I think is indicative of deer browse. For me, having my questions answered on the, making sure that the septic layout could conform to either design, an IA system, because I know that needs a little bit more room. The flexibility in the parking, and that wasn't a fixed parking plan. That was important to me as well as the amount of solar that can be placed on the roofs for both projects. And the ability to budgetarily consider both layouts as for net zero, because I know that can be quite costly. The thing that I was all for the linear design in the beginning, as you know. I like the look of that. I don't think potato barn is a bad term. I think it's an attractive thing. However, form and function for the users, I like the idea and how they've reconfigured the interior layouts much better for me in the windmill design. And then when I look at the two, what I like is that the blades, if we're going to call it that, that they afford the folks inside more view from both sides of the blade, rather than when you'll have an obstructed view in the linear design as one block is placed behind another. So you're really cutting off light. And you're cutting off view shed. So therefore, all that considered, after the Zoom, very informative Zoom, especially with their solar and net zero group, which is quite world renowned.
Out of 10.
I can support the windmill design.
Okay.
So if I can just go back to the property is really neat, the way the design, even though the understory is not there, I think I would try to request of them to see if they can have load bearing restraints onto the septic system, in which there would be a needed clearing for septic and a parking, in which the septic might be able to go under aspects of the parking,
Yeah.
and design that way. It just takes away
Cut
from
down coverage.
the clearing on coverage, but also,
Yeah. Yeah.
coverage, but the clearing.
Clearing.
Yeah. And I think that wouldn't be hard for them to do, but it would hit a couple, that one stone would take out a couple different things.
And you know that they changed their subcontractor for the IA system, and they're now going with McLean, and they've been consulting with Matt Jedlicka, who has
Right.
done most of ours, if not all of our commercial
Yeah.
IA systems in town.
And back to solar, I said it before, but if this would be probably one of the largest parking lots the town will be building or adding to. And it could be a good location again for solar over parking spots. Then too, as a test. We can always, we
Right,
got.
right.
Yeah, there's two really great parking lots up west to go look at. That's the Deer Park train station parking lot where they put canopied solar, so it also helps. Yeah, and also in the what is it, the Unified Library building in Patchogue, right off the expressway. They also have a very large parking lot and did canopy solar there, and they're both great projects. And there is some funding out there in the world.
Yeah, and I mean, I got an email this morning from Becky Hansen. I mean, we're going to be looking for grant money.
Yeah, it's out there for that kind of infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay, the other thing I just wanted to read an email I received from Katie Casey regarding the 3 Mile Harbor project. So at our construction meeting this morning for 3 Mile Harbor, I learned that the deliveries of the modular boxes will continue to the Roslyn site. What's happening is we had given them, permission to take it to Atlantic Beach, but they've brought it, Georgia Green Ventures has a project going on in Roslyn, and that's where they've been storing the modular sites. So what the holdup here is that they're waiting for the Suffolk County Water Authority to charge and inspect the hydrants and the boxes. The modular units can't be delivered until there's.
And they're still waiting for that, Kathy? Because that's
Yeah.
been quite a
Yeah.
number. That's been
So
a few
they're
weeks.
hoping that Suffolk County Water Authority is going to be hopefully wrapped up today.
That would be great.
So that would, and then they would be able to deliver the box. I think they're looking to deliver the boxes, the modular units next week, so that they do not need to use the parking lot at Atlantic Beach, but Katie wanted to make sure that the board knew that they wanted to thank everyone for their willingness, to use that lot. The other thing Jeannie had mentioned, we're going to be going out for RFP for 2 YMCA projects, the roof replacement and the HVAC system. And John, I had sent David an email, and I know he's out today. We heard changes to 2 code revisions to Chapter 151 special events last Tuesday and to Chapter 155 landscaping and gardening, where we were looking at bamboo and prohibited species. And I just wanted to confirm that those public hearing notices would be on for this Thursday, and we could schedule the public hearings for February 16th.
It'll be on.
We're good? Great. And then I just wanted to let folks know that I'm going to be going on vacation at the end of the week, and I'm going to be out for the weeks of January 23rd and the 30th. So I will be missing the meeting on Thursday, February 2nd. Just wanted to give you all a heads up, and particularly the clerk. Okay, so now we have resolutions, and I will start. We have resolution 2023-138. This is a payout upon resignation from Melissa Cullum. And it turns out Ms. Cullum is requested to make a payment to the town in the amount of $33.15.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have resolution 2023-139. This is amend resolution 2023-105, where Nicholas Werner was appointed to a full-time automotive position, but his pay rate was incorrect. He is hereby appointed to the position of automotive equipment operator at an hourly rate of $24.39 per hour, $50,733.07 annually, retroactive to January 1st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And I have resolution 2023-75, which is to appoint the 2023 members of the CARP committee. I'd like to thank,
I think we have to untable it first.
okay, so I make a motion to untable resolution 23-75.
Second.
All in
All in
favor?
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then therefore, as it is untabled, I offer resolution 2023-75 to appoint the 2023 CARP committee members as amended.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I just want to quickly thank Leo Daunt, who's the new president of the Montauk Chamber, for joining, and Patrice Dalton, who is the president of the Accomatic Protection Committee.
Great. So I'm going to offer. What else? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to untable resolution 2023-134.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh. John, does it have to be retabled?
What are you trying to do with it?
Do you want us to do this resolution today?
Which one is that?
It's
134.
resolution 134.
The airborne old one.
That's the retention.
Oh, yes, yes, yeah. The sooner we can do it, the better, I think.
You want us
Just
to
so-
do it today?
Yeah, we could. Oh,
Whatever you say.
I haven't heard more from Becky. She responded to me the other day with what I had given her, but let's hold it till Thursday. It's fine. It's made retroactive to December in any event, so.
Yeah, it is to December 13th. Okay.
So if you want to,
So
and
now I
I'll
make a
confirm
motion to
with Becky we're ready.
retable. Make a motion to retable resolution 2023-134.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that was an exercise.
Busy too.
Resolution 2023-140 is to set 2023 compensation for part-time school crossing guard James McGuire at $23 per hour, effective retroactive to January 1st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
2023-141 is to set 2023 compensation for part-time Marine Patrol employees at $25 an hour, retroactive to January 1st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 2023-142 is to approve use of American Rescue Plan 2021 funding for head of the harbor electrical upgrades in the amount of $35,000 as additional funding is needed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 2023-143 is a budget modification in the amount of $35,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act 2021 funding.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then David, you have an add-on.
I'd like to offer resolution 2023-144. This is the appoint temporary department head Anthony Littman, where he retired as full-time department head, head of the Buildings and Grounds Department, January 10th, 2023. Hereby, that we're appointing him to a temporary position of town maintenance supervisor and department head in the building department, an hourly rate of $48.52, retroactive to January 11th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So I believe we have two topics to discuss in exec session today.
So I make a motion, we go into exec session to talk about CPF and advice of counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If anybody has any other business they need to bring up before, great. Okay.
What time do you want to convene?
So the attorney isn't available till after 1, so why don't we just say 1:30?
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you.